Testing. 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 Maybe a little bit lower on the music. All right, maybe a little bit lower on the music again. Now it's almost too low. I can't hear anything. A little bit louder. I think that's going to be good right there. All right, we're live on X. We're live on YouTube. Let's test X real quick. How's it going, little KM? The X streaming servers are somewhat trash. They're slow. Okay, X is working. We're good. X is working. YouTube is working. Music is working. Volume is good. I think we're ready to go. Spit out the gum. Take a sip of water. Put on the headphones. Let's get this thing started. Good morning, Ed. Welcome to another Hoopo's stream. We're going to be doing another nice and relaxed little vibe coding stream today. Today's stream is going to be on MCP, otherwise known as the Model Context Protocol. It's a protocol, right, which means communication. So we got a nice little Ghibli style pic of a bunch of computers communicating. You can always find these on Hoopo Docs. This includes all the different links, some YouTube videos that I did kind of preparing for this stream. The music today is Lo-Fi House, brought to you by UDO. And I wanted to start by asking the most powerful foundation models we have available at the moment right now to explain Model Context Protocol in 3 sentences. So I got my 3 models right here. We got Grok 3 Thinking Mode. Model Context Protocol is a framework designed to standardize how machine learning models manage and interpret contextual information, ensuring they perform effectively in specific environments. It allows developers to define, share, and utilize context such as data characteristics, environmental factors, user preferences, enhancing model accuracy, adaptability, and decision-making capabilities. By implementing MCP, models become more effective across diverse applications, and collaboration amongst developers improves. Well, I don't know if that's actually good. There's a lot of fluff here, you know? I think this doesn't actually really define what MCP is. Let's see what Gemini has to say. How's it going, Pratik? I'm doing good. How about you? MCP is an open standard that standardizes how AI models connect with and utilize external data sources and tools. That's much more accurate. Its primary function is to create a universal model-agnostic interface, eliminating the need for custom integrations for each new data source or application. That's also a very good sentence. This approach simplifies development, enhances the capabilities, and allows for more seamless and powerful interactions between AI and various software environments. I think this is much better. So I don't even think this one was 3 sentences. Was this 3 sentences? 1 sentence? 2 sentences? Okay, so at least that was 3 sentences, but I would say these were not accurate and kind of fluffy. This one's a lot more specific, and I think it's 3 sentences. So far, Gemini beating Grok. Let's try GPT-o3 Pro. This is supposedly the most powerful thing in the world, so let's see. It's kind of stuck. This happens to me all the time, where it kind of gets to the last point, and then it just sits there, and I have to basically refresh. Let's hard refresh. There we go. The Model Context Protocol is the rule set that large language models use to interpret a conversation's stacked instructions in a fixed hierarchy. System instructions outrank developer messages, which in turn outrank user messages? What? By enforcing that precedence, the protocol lets the model resolve any conflicting directives deterministically to keep its behavior aligned with overarching policies? In practice, every response is produced by first consulting the highest level Okay, this is completely wrong. This is an entirely hallucinated nonsense answer here, describing some kind of like hierarchical, like, I don't know what this is describing. Is it 3 sentences? 1 sentence? 2 sentences and 3 sentences. Okay, so it's at least 3 sentences, but this is just straight up nonsense. Wow, that's impressive. So Gemini 2.5 Pro knows what it is, describes it well. Grok doesn't really know what it is, but at least kind of gives you an answer that's generic enough that it could be applied. And then O3 Pro just straight up gives you some trash. What this tells me is that O3 Pro doesn't have very recent data in it, because one thing about MCP is that it's maybe like a year or 2 old max. So it might be the case that O3 Pro hasn't actually seen MCP in its training data. Do you suggest a Gemini Pro subscription? Jokes apart, can you lay down the agenda? Let me grab a coffee. Try 04. Yeah, let's try 04. So 04 mini, or you mean 4.0 probably, right? 4.0 will know what it is, because 4.0 is more recent. Let's do this. How's it going, Alex? No, that's interesting. It also doesn't know. Memory, thread history, and file references? That's not what it is at all. Huh. Very weird. We'll see what happens. All right, so this is the actual official Model Context Protocol. So they have a GitHub organization here. You can see they have a Model Context Protocol for a variety of different programming languages. You got TypeScript, you got Python. We're obviously going to be using Python because that's my favorite programming language. And if you go here to the Pi project, you can see the maintainers, and you can see these Anthropic emails. So basically, this is a Anthropic product. It's useful, you know. It allows them to kind of integrate external things, exactly how Gemini described it here. Eliminating the need for custom integrations, it allows you to connect with and utilize external data sources and tools. Actually, I never answered your question, Pratik. Would I recommend a Gemini subscription? To be honest, I feel like the Google Gemini 2.5 Pro, in terms of like bang for buck, which is an American expression for like getting good value out of your money, I think it actually is the best, because you can give it a very large amount of context. It answers relatively quickly. I think there's no like throttling. I think with the OpenAI models, sometimes you're not actually getting, like, I think they have a cascade of models here. So like whenever you ask a question to 4.0, it's like you're not actually asking a smart model. It's like a dumber model that then potentially routes your question to a smarter model. So I don't know. Yeah, I would probably recommend Gemini, but it's not hard to say that right after this situation. But we're going to be integrating Model Context Protocol into our TatBot project. So the TatBot project is a tattoo robot that we've been kind of working on in these streams. And part of the TatBot is the fact that there's actually multiple computers on this. So I have, I think, 5 different computers. I have a computer which I'm calling OOP, a computer which I'm calling OOK, a computer which I'm calling Trossen AI, a computer that's called OHO, and a computer, two Raspberry Pis. So as you can see, I've picked some little emojis to represent them, but here's some more information on those computers specifically. So we have a Jetson AGX Orin, a small kind of edge GPU. I use this to host robot policies, VLAs, right? Also reconstruction models like VGGT. Trossen AI is just basically a CPU in a little box, and this is connected to the 2 robot arms. And then I recently got this small laptop with a NVIDIA RTX 4050, which is a pretty small, it's like 6 gigabytes of VRAM, so not a very big GPU, but I use this to do batch IK, so inverse kinematics, which is how you calculate the position, the joint positions of a robot arm given a end effector position. I do that in a batch, so I use JAX to basically perform inverse kinematics for an entire trajectory, an entire kind of tattoo design pattern, right? So for example, something like this, right? So I might start with a cat image, which I generate using, I think this one's Flux, and then I generate these paths. So I break down this image into these paths, and then once you have those paths, then you can basically sort those paths and then do inverse kinematics for each of those positions, right? Just giving you guys a little bit of a background here, but all of these computers, right, it's kind of a pain to constantly have to SSH into them and interact with each of them separately. So I had the idea of using MCP to basically interact with all these computers as if they were one kind of blob, one system, right? So that's what we're going to be using MCP for, is we're going to use MCP to basically abstract ourselves away from the fact that there's all these different subcomponents, subcomputers, or nodes as I'm calling them, and just talk or expose all the different functionality that TatBot has to one LLM agent. So once I create this MCP server, I'll be able to basically say, send the robot to this place, right? And that'll automatically kind of route it to the robot computer. Generate a new image and do the inverse kinematics for it, and then I'll route it to the appropriate computer, right? So I think it's a good little way to get used to MCP. So we're going to start from scratch. I have here obviously some ideas that we can work on, but yeah, we're starting exactly from scratch. I didn't want to have it already done. So let's just start and copy paste their examples here. So you can see they're also using UV. Everybody's using UV now, basically. Let's create a simple MCP server that exposes a calculator tool and some data. So let's go ahead and copy paste that in. All right, so the fast MCP demo. Let's call this TatBot. Let's get rid of this crap. And resource. So there's basically 3 different abstractions as far as I understand in MCP. There's what's called a tool, a resource, and then there's also what's called prompts. So I'm not super familiar with the abstractions, so I don't yet know kind of the best practices for that. So we're going to be discovering that. So we have our little server. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to be using this MCP inspector. So there's apparently this tool, this thing here, Model Context Protocol gives us a MCP inspector, which allows us to basically sit on top of the MCP server, which is going to be running on this computer. and send it basically fake commands, ask for fake things. So it allows us to see if it's properly accessing. I don't like it. Okay. So let's just try to see if we can get the MCP inspector to recognize this little fake server here that we just created. So I have the instruction here, directory path to server. I don't know if do we need the server path like that? All right, let's see if that works. Okay, so this will open a browser. You can see this is localhost, so this is just here. Let's refresh. Let's hit connect. Error connecting, so connect to an MCP server to start inspecting. Okay, so I don't think this actually connected to anything. Did this even run anything? What happens if we just run this like this? Let's do UV run, run MCP. See, it just instantly fails, so it doesn't actually even do anything. Let's go back here. You can install this server, MCP install. Alternatively, you can test it with the MCP inspector, MCP dev. Okay, so we have to UV add, UV init, UV run. All right, let's try that. Ah, here we go. All right, we're getting somewhere. We're getting some more interesting things here. This thing is so distracting. It's like drum and bass breakbeat right here. Let's make it a little bit lower. We just want to vibe with this music. We don't want it to dominate the session. Pratik. Oh, wow. I've been subscribing to ChatGPT. I think I don't want to necessarily be prescriptive here, Pratik. I think you can use all of these. These are all fine, you know. All of these models are fine. You can use DeepSeek as well. I think the frontier models, people love to kind of talk about how one is better than the other, but like in reality, they're all kind of pretty similar. Okay. Show the MCP. Run an MCP server. Okay, so you can do UV run, MCP run, and then I suppose we give it the name of our file. MCP dev server.py. Let's try that command. UV run MCP dev server, and then ours is called run MCP. Oh, okay. Let's see if that actually did something. Connect. Error connecting. Check console logs. Well, you know, this isn't particularly good. Transport type. STDIO is for local, and I think this might be the one. Maybe that's what's going on. Configuration. URL, localhost 3001. I think maybe we need to forward the port. So this is not actually the computer that we're on. We're actually in a computer that's separate from this computer, so that might be what's going on. So you see, this server might not actually be available, which I think is what's happening here. 6247, 6277. So we also need to add a port here. Let's do 6277. 6277. All right, user forwarded. So now that's forwarded as well. Let's control R here. Oh my god. All right, let's see if Cursor can help us here, because this is just not looking good right now. I can't seem to connect to this MCP server using the MCP inspector. Can you help me debug? Ni hao. Ni hao. Ni chulema. Sid. Okay, let's see what Cursor wants to say. Oh, I have it on O3. Nah, you definitely want auto. I found that the auto model on Cursor is actually pretty good. I think it's because they obviously spend more time on their own models than they do integrating other people's models, so. Maybe if we go into this, so let's go into the actual fast MCP class. Maybe there's some extra quarks there that we can understand. So we go here into source MCP, into the server. Let's do the main one. Receive loop. I think let's just search in here. Fast MCP. Here we go. Here's the class. Okay, so we can give it the name, instructions, auth server provider. This might actually be what we need, and then event store. Okay, the auth server provider. Control F. Where does this get set? If auth server is none, only if auth server provider is specified. Oh, you need to do mcp.run. All right. That makes it easy enough. Open inspector with token pre-filled. Let's try that. Nope, still nothing. Are the links for this session not on the GitHub docs? No, they are here. They're here. MCP. Hupo docs 2025-0620 MCP. Right here. I even have this YouTube video with Greg Brockman. This is a recent little pod he did. Everybody's kind of doing podcasts now. It's kind of weird, but he did a little podcast with one of the two brothers of Stripe. There's two brothers that founded the Stripe company, which is like basically payments. And at one point he actually says, MCP is really taking off. So all the cool kids are using it. And in fact, it might be the actual protocol that's used for the tool. So like any one of these models, right, they have some tools, right? Grok 3 has some kind of search tool. Gemini also has some kind of, all these models that you're interacting with the browser here, they have some amount of tools. It's not really clear which tools they have, right? They're not going to tell you which tools they have. I guess here you can kind of tell what tools, but I bet you these tools are using MCP. So it's useful to know this, I suppose. It's kind of like learning HTTP in the early 2000s, right? When the internet was taking off. If you knew how HTTP worked, it'd probably be useful. So MCP is kind of the same thing. Connection refused. Is the MCP server running? Let's see. Oh, you see how it added another port here? Localhost 3001. Which one is this? Localhost 6227. Let's try that one. Cannot get. All right, I don't know what's going on with this inspector. Let's go back to this. MCP run. Let's try that. Oh. UV run MCP run MCP. I don't think we have enough runs in there. Okay. Something's happening. It doesn't immediately fail out. This is dead now. All right, why don't we try to connect cursor to it? Fast MCP. What about this command? Fast MCP. UV run fast MCP. That is being forwarded, so that should be correct. Ah, there we go. Okay, so what command did we use? Let's keep track of it. So this was the command that actually worked. Right here. UV run MCP dev run MCP. So let's copy paste that in here. Right there. UV run MCP dev run MCP. And then click on this link. Oh. All right, we finally got it. That was probably not good. Like, you don't want this type of friction, right? You want zero friction, ideally. All right, so we got prompts. There should be no prompts here. All we have in our little MCP server is the add and the get greeting. So we should see one resource and one tool. List tools. Error. Info processing request of type server. List tools request. Tools list. Response. Add. Okay. That's fine. Initialize. Here we go. Add two numbers. 1 + 1. Run tool. All right, all right. Resources. List resources. Info processing request. Clear. List resources. Resources, no resources. Should have gotten this. Resource template. Oh. Oh, it's a resource template, but not our list okay. Enter personalized greeting. Read resource. Okay. Ping. Ping server. And then these are the replies we're getting, and we're getting nothing. Okay. All right, so far so good. It seems like we can kind of get what we need here. Let's close this out, and now let's actually try to bring it into Cursor. So part of the whole point about creating a TatBot MCP and basically allowing a model to use the TatBot is that I want to be able to use it here, right? So in the Cursor side window, I want to be able to say like, hey, host the policy server, right? And that should like spin up a Docker container on my Edge GPU, right? So I think the way you do that is you go to File, Edit. Where's the settings? View. Let's open it this way. Settings, Cursor settings. Tools and integrations. Add custom MCP. Add a custom MCP tool here or configure project specific tool. So add a custom MCP. Okay, so this is the actual command to run it. Okay. And now what do we do? Okay, TatBot, 0 tools enabled. Enabled. Edit. Should we maybe do it this way? UV run MCP run MCP. Let's try this. Inside this directory here. See that? I don't like that red dot. I wonder what's happening there. Control L. Why this no work? Is Cursor really helpful in real world products and projects? This is a question from Alex. I find it very useful. I think it depends on what kind of software engineering you're doing, right? So I think there's different types of software engineering. So there's all software kind of exists on a certain scale, right? So you have basically like I'll say small, medium, and then large, right? So for a small software project, right, usually you have like one dev, right? Small code base. And then the code base changes a lot. Right? In a medium software project, you might have a couple devs, right? Medium code base. Code base changes a little bit more, a little bit less, kind of less, right? And then large, you have lots of devs, right? Large code base. Code base barely changes, right? So in the Cursor helps. Cursor is useful when you're kind of like this, right? So for this Tapbot project, I'm the only developer, and the code base is very small. So I can put the entire code base in context, and I can change it, right? So for this, I would recommend Cursor, right? But if you had a large code base, I would actually recommend something like Claude Code or Codex, right? Because, and actually two that we tried, we also tried Jules from Google, right? And in these large code bases, you have lots of developers, right? And whenever you have this, all changes must be PRs, right? Pull requests, right? Versus in a small code base, let's actually get rid of this medium one just because I think we only need two to make the case. In a small code base, changes are not PRs, right? If you're the only developer in a code base, it doesn't make any sense to like do a PR, right? You just push directly to the main branch, right? So like in this, for example, this isn't really a code base. This is more of like a documentation, but like it'd be kind of stupid for me to create a pull request into my own repo. It's just kind of extra overhead that doesn't matter, right? But whenever you have a large code base with lots of devs, you have to have this kind of PR process because or else it'd be too confusing. The other reason you have stuff here is that in a small code base, kind of you have this kind of sequential kind of editing, right? Where every edit, right? Every edit changes a lot, so you can't do edits in parallel, right? Because every single time you change something in this I change something in this Tapbot code base, it kind of changes the code base significantly enough that I couldn't have a separate code agent kind of working on it, right? Versus in a large code base, like say something like PyTorch or something like that, right? Like some big code base, you would have more parallel editing, right? Where every edit barely adds dash changes anything, so you can do edits in parallel, right? So in this case, having something like Claude Code or Codex that goes and it works off for 30 minutes and you can be working on something different, and when you come back there's a PR, that's more useful. So which software product you use kind of really depends on where you are here, right? So if you're working in a small startup, if you're the kind of a solo founder, I would recommend something like Cursor. If you're in a kind of larger company, you're working on a big code base that doesn't really change a lot, I would recommend something like Claude Code or Jules, right? Yeah, no problem. Hope that answered your question, Alex. Okay, so we got a question from Ed here. CEO, talking about Sam's podcast. Doing podcasts is basically listening to yap and lie instead of like a vision or goal. Yeah, so Ed is talking about, I think, Sam Altman podcast. He recently had a pod with his, this is his older brother or younger brother. I don't exactly know, but they basically, he sat on this pod, and I think there was like one thing that people really focused in on, which is basically Zuckerberg saying that, or Sam Altman accused Zuckerberg of using $100 million offers to steal employees or something like that. But we don't know if that's true, and there's a lot of precedent for Altman being like kind of, you know, manipulative, you know, where he's a really high level kind of like social intelligence player, so like he knows how to like lie just the right way. I don't think he like lies like pure lying, right? Because pure lying is kind of like a low IQ move because it's very easy to disprove, but he does this kind of like kind of almost lying thing where like he's not necessarily lying, but like the way he's saying it is a little bit kind of disingenuous. So yeah, I don't know if I would necessarily trust everything that comes out of his mouth, because he's not being truthful, right? He's someone who like wears a mask, and then the mask is this kind of personality that he wants you to believe in. So I don't know, just be careful. I think Greg Brockman is much more truthful, right? So the other guy that we showed here, this guy here, he's much more direct, versus Sam Altman is a little bit more Machiavellian. Even Anthropic released a video recently about MCP. Yeah, I was watching a bunch of MCP videos yesterday, so I think I did post that one. So it might have been this one.
Hey everyone, I'm Shaw.
No, this is this other guy. I didn't even know this guy. I just like discovered this guy, but he basically is very similar to me. He makes like same kind of content. Pretty good, you know, pretty good content. I would say my thumbnails, I kind of like the cat thumbnails, but, you know, I can't argue this guy's got way more subs. His videos get more views, so, you know, real recognize real. I think it might have been this one. Was it this one?
Around the time, like
yeah, this is the Anthropic. So this is a video released 4 days ago by the Anthropic official YouTube, and this is I think the two people in charge of the MCP. So this is the MCP team, and then this is like the podcast bro who like interviews the MCP people. But yeah, it's useful for like Anthropic is kind of was in a sticky situation, right? Because I feel like they're kind of slipping away from the frontier model race, because it's like the reality is that they don't have the type of money that Meta and that XAI and OpenAI and Google, like it's starting to become like a bloodbath in terms of like who has money to do this, right? Like I don't think Anthropic can pay people $100 million salaries. Like they're not at that, so they have to like find something to kind of focus on and specialize in, and MCP fits perfectly with their kind of like code specialization. So I think they're gonna they got a little bit of traction on this MCP, right? It seems like people are adopting it, so I think you're gonna see them kind of lean into it more and more and more. So I mean, it is a well created software, right? So you can see they're pushing to it. You have updates last week, 3 days ago, 2 months ago, 7 months ago. So they're definitely like, it's a very active code base. I think this might actually be the guy. Is this the guy? Yeah, I think this guy is this guy. We'll hit him with a little follow. That's kind of interesting. He's not. Okay, this might just be his Anthropic GitHub account, because I was like, there's no way this guy has only coded for 2 years. That doesn't make any sense. You can see he's a Rust developer, so he's got some Rust code, he's got some Python code. But I have large project and tried using GitHub Copilot, but it seems useless. Therefore, I'm looking for what kind of tools can help boost the process. Yeah, I mean, I just use Cursor a lot. I like it, but I am aware that it's because pretty much everything I do is like this, right? Like all the different software that I work on is like really small, right? It's like small projects. Usually I'm kind of the only developer on it. So Cursor works well for me, but for other people who work in these big companies where, you know, you have to do everything through PRs, code base barely changes, I think other tools are probably better. Okay. Claude Code also recently seems to have gained a lot of attention aside from MCP. Yeah, that's I've definitely had some friends who have talked highly about it. Excited to see how the protocol develops for distributed systems like your setup. Yeah, so the way that I actually designed this is not necessarily... So one way that I could have done this, right? So just to kind of give people context in case you just joined, right? So my Tatbot, actually, let's pull up a picture just so people know exactly what I'm talking about. Polycam. So this is Tatbot. All right, let's let it load for a second. Right, and I have lots of, this is the tattoo robot, right? But I have there's 4 or 5 different computers on here. You got multiple Raspberry Pis, you have the Orin, you have the Trossen. So one way that I could have done this is that every single one of those computers runs its own MCP server, right? So I could have had basically all of these little tiny computers each run their own MCP server, and then I have to add all of the MCP servers, right? Then I would have Tapbot Raspberry Pi, Tapbot Meerkat, Tapbot AGX Orin, Tapbot Raspberry Pi 2, right? So each of those would have its MCP server. But what I decided on instead is that there's going to be one central node that then talks to all the other nodes, right? So rather than having to expose 5 different MCP servers, I'm just going to have one central MCP server, and then that central MCP server then can go and send commands to the other ones, right? So then what that means is that all these other computers don't actually need to be connected to the real internet, right? They really only need to be connected in a local network, and then the one computer that has the kind of master MCP server, that's the only one that actually needs to talk externally. So it's kind of like people call this kind of like a gateway pattern, right? Where you have basically just one gateway that then leads to the rest of your computers. I feel like that was a little bit cleaner for this, but I'm not necessarily sold on that design either. Do you think MCP has potential to be a protocol that will be used moving forward? I think for sure, right? I think the fact that Greg Brockman talked about it, the fact that Anthropic is leaning in hard on it, it makes sense. Like I said, I don't know for sure, but I would almost guarantee you that the way that these tools are exposed to these agents here, right? I bet you it's probably MCP, right? So like the same thing here, right? Like these are, this has different tools, I think. Web search, X search, like these are all, those are probably all via MCP, right? So, yeah, I think it's here to stay. Until we kind of get a next level of a model, and then this all changes. Okay, so let's go back to here. We were trying to get this to run, and it wasn't actually... So what did it say here? Can be problematic as not all tools expanded to your home directory. Okay, reject. It says it wants the full path, so let's do this. Dash home. Oop, let's do that. Okay. Let's go here. Reject. Disabled. Enabled. Stop. New. Okay, so we're still not getting the 0 tools enabled here. Edit. Maybe we need to run the server. Let's see if we run the MCP server. MCP. Run an MCP server. So maybe we do this. Does that actually even like run it? Let's add some logs, guys. Import logging. I also have a log module here. Import from log import setup logging, or not setup logging. This is get logger and setup logging. I think it is. Let's see the design pattern here. Log.getLogger. I think this one has it. Yeah. Bam. Run MCP. Bam. 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 Log equals get logger. This one's going to be MCP. Run MCP. So we're just setting up some logging here just so we can verify that it's actually doing something. Args equals print config args. We're gonna have to add a config here. So from data classes, import data class. This is kind of just standard Python here. You basically want a data class MCP config, and this will basically allow us to put any options that we want on this, right? So now let's MCP equals fast. I guess you have to have this on the global scope just to be able to do this right here. Let's create like a kind of a run function here. Run MCP that consumes this config object, which right now basically does nothing, and then we're going to say log info. And here's the other part, is that whenever you're doing little tiny code bases like this, you can do what you want, right? So one of the things that I have in this code base is I have a ton of emojis. So we have to decide what the best emoji is for MCP. So let's go into my favorite website, which is emojidatabase.org. So if we do MCP, actually, let's let these models. What do you think is the best emoji to represent MCP? Let's ask them all. Let's go back to the conversation we had here. All right, let's see. Let's see. The electric plug. I do like that one. That one's pretty good. MCP could be brain. I feel like that's overutilized. I don't like that one. I'm thinking link feels the... I kind of like link as well. That's a good choice. Electric plug. Okay, I think electric plug is the coolest. Let's do that one. Plug. Copied. Let's go here. Boom. Starting MCP server. We don't really know what that is yet, so let's just remove that. Let's do that just to get rid of that. And then here, run MCP. Okay, so now all we did was just add some logging here just so we should be able to see that. So now whenever we hit this run, we should see the run MCP. Oh boy. UV run MCP should be config. MCP config. MCP config has no attribute MRO. What the fuck is this? Constructor registry? Control-Shift-I, add to chat. What's going on here? I'm pretty sure that's what we did with the other ones. Here's my April tag detection. Okay. You need to pass it just the class, not the full object. Okay. Starting MCP server. Okay. Now we can see that it's started. I wonder if we could inspect it. No. Okay, let's see if it starts when we do the MCP run. Something about this run MCP run, it just is not very good. Let's see if it works with the dev. And let's go to the inspector here. Go, go, go. Oh, or said dangerously omit auth equals true to disable auth. Do we want auth disabled? Come on. Okay. That worked. All right. I think rather than debug this cursor stuff, which is probably less interesting, let's try to think about what is some of the simplest stuff we can put here. So here's some idea. Ping nodes, send files to nodes. So I have one thing here where I basically check to see test node connection right here. Test nodes, this one here. So let's do this and say Control-Shift-I. Add the test nodes as a MCP tool in at run MCP. So let's see how cursor does this, right? It should be adding another tool here that calls the test nodes, which is a function that I have that basically pings all the different computers on Tapbot and then sees if they're all responding. I don't know about this like weird Japanese music here. Okay. Finalizing. Dude, why is this taking so long? We're going to have to import net here. First, I'll update net to modify the test nodes. Ooh, I don't know about that, but let's see. Let's see what it decided to do. Okay, so before you could see it was just returning this Boolean. Now it's returning a tuple of a Boolean and a list, which I guess it returns the nodes that don't work. That's fine. Where else was this function being used? That's Control F. Okay, so it's not actually... That's not going to modify the existing behavior. You can see here it's adding the typing, setup net config, and then test nodes. Do we need this setup net config? I don't think we do. If we go to this, what do we have from this config? Just this timeout and then the nodes. Okay, that's fine. All nodes are responding. Let's see. So now, if we go to this, restart, connect. This is kind of annoying. That means you're telling me I have to reopen this every time. Tools, list tools. Ah, here you go, ping nodes. Let's run that. Run tool. Ah, look at that. All of our little nodes are responding. So these are all the different computers. All right, connection successful. So we're pinging all of them. Nice. Let's do a little Control-Shift-G here where we save this. So add a little git commit, sync changes. All right, nice little update. And this is kind of what I'm talking about, is that already right there, you see what I did is I changed this test nodes. But because I'm the only developer on this repo, it doesn't really matter, right? But imagine there was somebody else working on this, and that somebody else was like using the old version of this function. Then the code that they wrote would no longer work with this, right? So like that's kind of what I mean by like there's completely different dynamics in a code base that is being worked on a lot of people and barely changes versus a code base that's worked on by a small amount of people and constantly changes. All right, let's go back here. Where should one start if they want to follow along with your work? I mean, all this is open source, so this is all here. Hupo Tatbot. Right here. This is my GitHub, and then I have it pinned right here. So this is the repo that I'm working on, right? So you can actually see 1 minute ago, if you go here to commits, that's actually the commit that I just did right here. Right? So there's the changes. So, I mean, you can follow along, but I don't think it's necessarily, like, I don't think it's worth your time to, like, re-implement what I'm doing here. I think what you should be thinking about is more kind of how do I use MCP in my project, right? That's kind of more what you should be thinking about is like, hey, this guy's using MCP. How do I use MCP? Okay. Let's remove some of this spaces here. What other tools can we add here? Git pull local tatbot repo. So another thing that's kind of annoying is that when you have a lot of computers like this, if I make a change to the tatbot repo, I then have to go into each of these computers and git pull to have the latest code. So it's actually kind of convenient if I could basically have a tool via MCP that goes into each of the nodes and runs the git pull command, right? So let's make a tool for that. Let's go to net. And I think I have a run remote command. Yep. Okay. So let's do this. Run remote command. Let's say Control-Shift-I again. Create a new tool in @runmcp that uses the run remote command function to do a git pull in the local node tatbot repo. All of the nodes have tatbot in the tatbot path. Okay. So while that works, one thing that I'm going to do here is I also have this script here called context. This script basically copies all the files and puts them into one text file. So I can do this .-context. And now I've created this context03.txt, and you can see how it's basically, it says below is a list of files in the tatbot v3, and it basically has all the files with little end file, begin file. It's very similar to this tool, git ingest. This is a tool that Karpathy talked about where you can basically put in your repo, right? And then it'll basically turn it into a text. But I have my own version of that. So I'm going to Control-All, Control-Copy. I'm going to go to Gemini, new chat, and I'm going to say, help me design the MCP server for Tatbot. What are 3 tools, 3 resources, and 3 prompts that I can add? And then we're going to copy paste the entire code base. So you can see how this is a huge amount of context. But we're going to do that, and then we're going to also ask O3 Pro. And then we're also going to ask Grok 3. Grok 3 smartest with think. Okay, so we're going to let those 3 cook. And those 3 will help us give suggestions for the best tools and resources to add. Okay, this finished. So import OS, import subprocess. I kind of don't like that. As soon as you see subprocess, that means it's going to be creating a subprocess. MCP tool runs git pull. Config 4 node in nodes. Pull nodes. Okay, I mean, so far that seems fine. All right, let's rerun this. Let's see if we can use that. Connect. We're now connected. We should see one more tool here. There you go. Git pull all. Runs git pull on the Tatbot repository on all configured nodes. Run tool. Okay, this one might take a second. All right, there you go. Tool success. So you can see now I have a way of basically running git pull on all my machines. Pretty good. So you can see it went into Tatbot, it went into Oho, Ook, RPi1, and then RPi2. Pretty good. You can see how in Raspberry Pis I hadn't logged into them in a while, so it didn't git pull. Monkey see, monkey do. Monkey learn, then monkey go buy, shop, buy claws, and get to work. Are you the monkey in this case, Ek? What's going on? All right, so this one also worked. I don't like how it's like importing a bunch of stuff here, but all right. Now we got 2 different tools in our little MCP server. We got these 2 here. We got ping nodes and we got git pull. Okay, now let's see where these guys are at and see if they recommended any tools for us. Okay, here's a design for MCP server for Tatbot. The following tools can be added to your run MCP script to control and monitor the Tatbot. Generate a plan. Generates a complete robot motion plan. I think that's a good idea. Okay. Visualize plan starts the 3D visualization for a specified plan on the dedicated visualization node. That's also a good idea. Record plan execution. Okay, I think those are pretty good. Let's see the resources. This is more tricky. So the tools are kind of obvious. I feel like that's the most obvious abstraction, but like the resources and prompts are like the weirdest or the weirder abstractions here. Prompts are examples of natural language that illustrates how a user might interact with the Tatbot MCP server. Oh, so a prompt is like This prompt would chain 2 commands. Run the cat plan on the robot and record it as cat test run 05. So, is that the right thing? Let's go back to this. Control-Shift-T. Concepts. Prompts. All right, so now we're on the MCP documentation, and we're trying to understand a little bit better exactly what the hell a prompt is. Prompts enable servers to define reusable prompt templates and workflows. Okay, so workflow means chaining tools together, which is kind of what this was saying, where you can chain 2 tool commands. Accept dynamic arguments. include context, chain multiple interactions, guide specific workflows. Dynamic prompts. Embed resource content. Okay, so if you had a tool call that needed some specific type of resource, right? Resource is like kind of like data as far as I understand, right? Yeah, so it's basically, it's a way to populate the context of the model with maybe some database information. So the way that would work with a prompt is if you needed to perform some kind of tool that required some kind of specific information, you would have a prompt that first gets the resource and then calls the tool. So I think I'm starting to understand this. Multi-step workflows. Oh my god, as soon as you see these like nested dictionaries, like this is not bueno. Explain how code works. These tools are just like not, they're not good. All right, O3 Pro. See what O3 Pro recommends. Returns the name of all plans in plan tapbot output plans. I kind of like this tool. Get plan stats. Load a plan and return its path length statistics. Ooh, this one's good. For every node, report basic CPU and RAM usage. If this actually works, that'd be fucking sick. All right, let's try it. All right, so we're going to add this tool that O3 recommended to us. Let's put it right here. Let's get rid of this, the generic one. So MCP greeting, let's get rid of that. And then let's also get rid of add. We don't need these anymore. Okay. So we just added this tool. This is like really not... Ugh. Ugh. This is just terrible Python. What the hell? I hate how all of these want to use pathlib. Alright, let's go here. Let's say refactor this tool such that it makes use of our _net module. Right, so I don't like how it's like doing this importing. I don't like how it's using the path module, so I'm gonna basically try to get it to use the net module that we created here. All right, while that's working, and this is another thing about kind of coding in the age of AI, is that you have to kind of get good at like doing things in parallel, because all these reasoning models, like they just take so long to answer that you can't just like sit here and wait for it. So like that's why I'm constantly alt tabbing into different things here. So while that works, I'm going to read this output. List plans, execute plans. Ooh, resources in MCP are endpoints. So a plan endpoint, that's a good idea. All right. We're going to copy that one. Okay, so you can see here now it's using the isLocalNode, which is what we want. Let's hit accept. All right, we'll see if this actually works. Let's do Control C. Let's restart it. While that is working, let's go here and let's say implement this resource. Okay, let's go back here, connect. We should have one more tool here. Node usage. Let's try node. First of all, let's do ping nodes. Okay, all the nodes are there. Let's run the git pull. That should succeed. Okay. Now let's check the node usage. Pretty much all of them, none of them should have anything. Okay, no module named psutil. So this is a problem. PyPy psutil. See, the problem is now we're going to have to basically install it for every single one of these. Okay, so relatively recent. Let's look at their Git. 10K stars 3 weeks ago, last week, 6 months ago. Okay, so this is a very good repo. See, lots of users, very active, lots of stars. This totally seems like a worthwhile dependency. Let's do that. Let's add it. Let's add it to our code base. In order to add this dependency to the code base, what did this accept? We're going to Control C. We're going to do uv pip install psutil, and I can see here that it did version 7.0.0, so we're going to copy that. Then we're going to go into our Py project, and we're going to put this here in the dependencies for everything, right? So UV and the Py project allows you to separate dependencies. So you can have optional dependencies, which are, for example, these are the robot dependencies. So I only want these installed on the robot arm. So therefore, I'm going to kind of separate them out from all the generic dependencies. But because we're going to want to use this psutil command on all of the nodes, that's why I'm going to put it here in the kind of like generic dependencies. Okay, but now that I've added this extra dependency, right, we have an issue. And that issue is that, okay, well now we have to basically install it in all the computers, right? So it's the same kind of situation as this git pull here, right? Git pull all, right? So let's update this tool to call it, what should we call it? Update all. Okay. We're going to select this and we're going to tell it, hey, in addition to running git pull, make this tool also go into the tatbot source 0.3 directory and run uv pip install dot. And it's not just that, and create a UVVM and run, because we basically wanted to delete the current existing virtual environment and then reinstall the virtual environment, right? And the cleanest way to do that, and UV makes it very easy, is you first deactivate the existing one, you remove the existing virtual environment, you remove this, create it, source it, pip install it. Okay. So we're gonna have to tell Cursor to also do that. Make sure to properly clean any existing old code, old VM using these commands. Some of these commands might fail, such as remove uv.lock or deactivate. So make sure the tool is robust to this. Any question from the people? It doesn't need to be MCP questions. You guys can ask me questions about whatever. You know, I'm here to talk. You know, I listen to all the AI podcasts, you know, so you guys can ask questions about that too. Okay. This is the new get plan. This is a resource. So all the ones we've been adding up until now are tools. This is the resource. So this is basically just information. So a plan is an abstraction specifically in Tapbot, and it's basically just like one. Oh, let's have an issue with that image. All right, here we go. I'll come back to what I was saying. Update all. Runs git pull, reinstalls the Python dependencies, executes git pull, and reinstalls all the dependencies. Yep. Updating that. Okay, here's the actual command. Okay. Okay, that seems fine. Accept. Let's see if we can run that. Oh, whoa. Speech recognition. Let's run it. Oh. Something's going on. There's a bug. Tell Cursor to fix it. Let's see if we can discover what's wrong. I think it probably needs to be, yeah, like that. All right, here we go. Back up. Let's open up the inspector. Connect. AI hasn't yet one-shotted a crazy scientific breakthrough like room temp superconductors. It's been 3 years since ChatGPT. Yeah, I mean, I have some opinions on that. So first of all, AI is already accelerating science, right? So I can feel that even just personally, right? So this code base, this Tapbot project that I'm working on, I could not have done this without AI, right? Like the amount of code, like the speed at which I'm kind of creating code and adding functionality is at least 5 times faster, right? Previously, like everything that, like before I had code agents, kind of one of these things would have maybe taken me a week, and now I can do that amount of work in like 1 day. So I basically have managed to compress like a week of work into 1 day of work. So in terms of like scientific progress where code is the primary bottleneck, right, which is some subset of all scientific progress, I think that has already been accelerated. It just doesn't get the credit because, hey, the people who are doing that work, the scientists, they're getting credit for the increased productivity, right? Even though it's the AI that's enabling that productivity increase. So I would say in that sense, AI has already accelerated science. But I do agree with you, Paul, that we haven't gotten kind of like a big kind of like new interesting thing that was entirely generated by the AI. And that's something that like I feel like goes a little bit deeper than that, right? Where one kind of interesting thing about these AIs is that I love the terminology that Karpathy uses in his Karpathy YouTube startup school. This was a great little interview that he did, or kind of talk that he did, but he kind of talked about AIs as a kind of a human spirit, right? So AIs are simulations of people, right? And I think that's important to note because even though AIs have, like he says, right, encyclopedic knowledge and memory, right? So like even though the AI knows like everything, right? Like it's an expert in medicine, it's an expert in math, it's an expert in like etymology and geography, right? It like has so much knowledge. It somehow doesn't have the combination of that, right? Where it's like if a human was an expert in geography and also an expert in something completely unrelated like bike maintenance, right? They would be able to kind of combine those two things in a way that would produce kind of novel insights, right? So humans can basically take the knowledge that they have and kind of form it into a new interesting thing that hasn't existed before. But LLMs don't do that at all, right? It's like to them, all these different areas of expertise and knowledge are separate because they're not together in the human world either, right? So it's like all the medical knowledge, that kind of part of the knowledge embedding space is kind of separate from the geography knowledge or something like that, right? So it's like the AI is never going to be able to come up with kind of some novel insight that lives in between those two spaces of knowledge, because the AI, the way that it works is it kind of has this like thread of consciousness, right? And it's producing tokens. So if it's producing medical token, medical token, medical token, medical token, medical token, it's not going to suddenly put in geography token, medical token, medical token. You know what I'm saying? It can't like blend the knowledge in. It's just like it's recreating. It's like this spirit of a medical expert, the spirit of the geography expert. So a lot of these next level scientific breakthroughs that people want, I think, are the combination of these different types of human expertises and knowledge bases, but the AIs don't combine those well, even though they have them, even though they have this very, very broad kind of encyclopedic knowledge, they just don't have the ability to kind of combine them in a novel, interesting way that's going to produce some kind of new breakthrough thing. Feels more like the Steam engine than ASI. Yeah, I think it is. In a way, it's already ASI. You know what I'm saying? It's like it knows more than any human. It's smarter than any human. You know, I am 100% okay with that statement of like, hey, is it super intelligent? Yes, it's more intelligent than pretty much any human. It just lacks the kind of like weird blend of agency and kind of consistency that humans have, so it just doesn't feel super intelligent. Just like set the temperature to 2, brah. Yeah, but all you're going to do if you set the temperature to 2 is increase the variance of the tokens that are coming out, and you're going to get more randomness, but all the other tokens in your context are still medical tokens. So it's like you're not going to randomly start going into a different part of the you know what I'm saying? It's all still going to be medical themed because it's kind of like evocating a medical expert. Right? It's like the context sets the output, determines the output. It's an autoregressive model. The output is depending on the context, and the context is a simulation of a specific type of human. AlphaFold 2 predicted 200 million proteins, equivalent to $24 trillion and 55 million work years based on the previous techniques released for free. Yeah, I think that's what Greg Brockman mentioned as his kind of breakthrough thing. The models don't implicitly blend. I'm just being cheeky. Yeah, I know. I'm just kind of playing off you. Don't worry. Most of what I say is like sarcastic and or not necessarily correct. All right, we were here. We're connected. List resources. List prompts. I think we were list tools. Node usage. Yeah, this is what we wanted to do. Or update all. Run tool. So this should now do a reset of the virtual environment as well. UV command not found. UV command not found. Okay, that's not good because there 100% is a UV virtual environment in here. All right, I mean, now I'm a little bit concerned. Let's actually try to SSH into the Raspberry Pi machine and see if we can actually run that. So SSH RPi1 at 192.68.0. What is Let me go to my configs and see exactly what the RPI one is. This was one here, 98. Oh, it's because it needs to be tap RPI 1. Come on. Okay. Ah, it actually isn't found. Interesting. Okay. So we need to install UV in all of our computers. That's going to be annoying. Right here. Bam. Okay. Let's do the same thing with RPI 2. Okay, what else did it say here? There should totally be UV in Ook. All right, well, we've updated RPI 1 and RPI 2, so now if we call this tool again, I feel like it should work. Question from Paul. How's it going, Felix? Little metal sign there. It sped up human labor like the steam engine. It discovered them all using human methods, kind of, just with new compute paradigm and capability. Yeah, that's kind of what I was arguing for, is that AI has 100% kind of sped up human labor. So BTW, you can use UVX alongside with your package to make the installation smoother. UVX from name of package, name of script. So you're saying I don't actually need to do the UV pip install and then UV run? I can just say UVX. I don't exactly know what you're talking about with this UVX. UVX Python. Not now. Search. Here we go. UVX will use the latest version of the requested tool on the first evocation. Okay, so this is if you want like tools. Tools are Python packages that provide command line interfaces. Yeah, so this is like UV trying to like kind of expand beyond just dependency management. I don't know. I don't think that's, I don't like that. I want my tools simple, you know? It's like I want UV just be a Python package manager. Like don't try to consume my command line, you know? That just makes it more annoying. Did this run? Tool result, success, but it failed. All right, copy. Let's go back to our, kill that. Come here. The update command or tool succeeds even though the individual remote commands fail. Okay, so we're going to give it that. I think UV wants to make cargo like for Python. Yeah, I agree. Kind of like a build system, basically. And then it starts to consume everything else as well, right? So like, oh, if you have any command line args, now it just goes through UV as well, and there's like all kinds of magic that happens there. But yeah. It could be a good thing. I just really like UV because it's fast, and then also because it kind of just puts everything in the folder, right? So like it just puts all this crap inside this .vm folder, so that if I ever get into like some weird state where I don't know what the hell happened anymore with my dependencies, I can just literally just delete this folder, remove .rf.vm, and there you go. It's a complete reset, right? And the ability to just kind of quickly just delete that folder and then reinstall it, and it's fast enough that you can basically do this very quickly and make it part of your developer workflow. That to me is the advantage. Okay. UV pip install. Repo path. I don't want that. No. Just do this, dude. Just do this. UV pip install. Stop trying to be fancy. Accept. Export. Ooh. Home local bin path. Oh, it might be the bash shell is the problem. Let's get rid of that. Rerun. See, like right there, why did it just reinstall everything? Oh, because it just deleted that. It did this is local node. So it deleted the stuff that I had locally, and now it's rebuilding it. It's kind of annoying. Let's get rid of this. We don't want it to do the local one. We just want it to do the nodes. If is local node. Pass. Just want it to skip that. Save. Kill. Run. Open. Open. Connect. Tools. List tools. Ping nodes. Run tool. All of them are connected. Update all. Run tool. It's doing something. Oh no. Alright, let's check this. Let's SSH back into our Raspberry Pi. Control R SSH. Okay, dash bin dash bash UV. No. Yeah, I mean, it's totally there. I don't know what's going on here. IDK, what's going on? So this is what it's actually running. So let's do this. Run this command. Okay. Yeah, it totally works. See that? So this run remote command, something about that is causing it issues. Okay. Let's explain our problem to Cursor. This command works fine when I SSH. And we're going to copy paste this here. But when I do it through the MCP server and remote does not work. What could be causing the issue? Let's get rid of this, put in this. And then let's copy this thing here. Take a little sip of water. Just some relaxed Friday coding, you know? Focusing on path modification. When you SSH into a machine, your shell runs its startup files like bashrc and profile. However, when a command is run programmatically over SSH, it's often non-interactive and non-login shell. These shells don't always run the same startup file, so the path can be minimal and the commands installed, for example, where UV is, aren't found. So that's why I wanted to do this. So basically this run remote command here which is using client.execute command. So I'm using this here, Paramiko. So I found this is actually kind of like a very kind of interesting project. So Paramiko, okay, is a Python project, okay. And first of all, the organization is an organization that only has this thing. So it's like a GitHub organization specially made specifically for this Paramiko. In terms of the actual project, it has all the correct signals, right? So for example, high star count, 2 years ago, maybe last year, like the modification, maybe it hasn't changed that recently, 4 months ago, 10 months ago, okay. But then look at this, like 20 years ago. So this is a 20-year-old project that is still getting updated, okay? Pure Python implementation of SSH v2, so basically I use it to like transfer files around, relies on cryptography, okay? Now we click on the main guy, developer sysadmin. I think this is the guy who was weird. Yeah, this guy who works in Washington, D.C. with a heavy focus on security is the main dev on this Paramiko, which is used for SSH. So like, is this some secret like CIA shit going on here? I don't know. I don't know. I'm too stupid. I'm not actually good at security, so maybe I'm just too stupid. Let's rerun this. Now that we've updated, got like 5 different inspectors open. Connect. Tools. List tools. Ping nodes. Update all. Okay, now let's see if it works. Kind of feels like it's doing something. Request timed out. That's because it has to recreate the environment, so it's going to take too long. So we have to basically have this be much slower. Config key path. Okay. Let's say the timeout for this is too short. Takes a while to do the UVM installation. Update all functions timeout. Where is the timeout actually specified in this? I messed up. I meant to read the file. That was 30 seconds? That didn't feel like 30 seconds at all. Let's close out of this. Let's go back to our main session here. Let's save. Okay. Open up a new one. Close this one. Connect. Why is that not working? Come on. What's going on here? Okay. It's live. Connect. There's just too many of these going on. Is that what's going on? Maybe it's our cursor settings. Created client transport. Connect. Look at all this crap that it's feeding. All of a sudden, it just doesn't work. Is there shit running? Is that why? Sudo pkill python star. This is a classic. Okay. Let's just reset this UV virtual env just in case. Okay, see how fast that was? That was pretty good. Quick reset. Come back. Run. MCP inspector is up and running. I feel like we didn't change anything and all of a sudden it just doesn't work anymore. Oh, maybe it's this timeout? Request timeout? What happened? We literally didn't change anything. This is all the changes that we've done since then. Okay, I mean, like, nothing here feels like it should have broken it. All we did was just add psutil. F11 or F8, I think it is. Control F8. Which one is it? More tools, developer tools, Control Shift I. That's what it is. Okay, console elements. Sources, assets, MCP proxy auth. think it's because I talk shit on that DC developer. He's like hacking my computer now. He's like, how dare you? Like, the button is just non-responsive now. UV run MCP. Let's do this. Does that command work? UV run MCP. Starting MCP server. Does this work? Nope. 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 Dude, I mean, like let's see how people recommend to do this. Cursor, use a custom MCP server. Model Context Protocol, how to use MCP server. I want my build and use your own MCP server. This is what I want. Edit MCP server, add new MCP server. MCP tools, add a custom MCP server. Okay, I mean, that's what I have there. That's it. Is there like official building a custom MCP server? Nope. I like these GIFs. Alright, kind of useless crap here. No tools available. Okay, that's kind of what we're running into here. This is like an old UI, so I feel like all of these are old. February, I feel like they updated it. This isn't the same UI anymore. Maybe it's like you need to connect. Like, how is this doing the authentication? That's the real question, right? How does Cursor authenticate with this MCP server? Because we probably need to tell it here when we create this MCP server some kind of authentication. Let's go back to the actual concepts, examples, tutorials, example servers. If we control F cursor in here, here we go. Key features, example clients. Okay, that's not really what we want. Cursor. Client. Reference implementations. Archive servers. Development tools. Web and browser automation. Brave search. I feel like this one's popular. Okay, is this the same? That seems like a similar, that seems similar to this JSON right here. MCP servers, Brave search, command, Docker. Ah, so actually you see this one's running inside Docker, which is probably cleaner than what we're doing here with this UV situation. This one does not use Docker, npx. Usage with VS Code. Is there any example here of UV based? Cursor, MCP server, UV. Running non-Docker MCP servers in Cursor. That's exactly what we need. You have to install the MCP proxy, run the proxy, oh my god, this is so annoying here. Okay. Alright, let's try this. MCP proxy, MCP reverse proxy. Okay, now let's do this. And then we're going to give it the run MCP. Run MCP not found. Let's try this Kubernetes one. Maybe if we can get that one to work, maybe that's a step towards getting ours to work. Okay. Add a new SSE MCP server with this. So then all you need to add is just URL and then transport. Okay. So let's add it. Sorry, like this. What do they call this one? Calculator. No, this is Kubernetes. MCP server Kubernetes. This should also be here. Okay. Okay, this one's actually loading tools. So that's actually working. It's doing something. Okay, but it's kind of stuck on loading tools. Let's do this. So we know that this command worked, so let's Control-C out of this. Turn that one off. We know that this command has worked for us. Use UV run this. So now, if we just take this and put this here, comment this out, do tatbot dev, and I think this is what was the transport again? stdio. Okay. It doesn't like this. Oh, loading tools. Loading tools. We're almost there. I can feel it. Okay. Let's go back to the GitHub. Let's go to Python. I think maybe this fast MCP object is not exactly what we want. Server implementation. Let's do this. I really don't understand why we can't connect with this. MCP. Run MCP. Like just halfway through this session, it just all stopped working for some weird reason. Maybe it's just all these extra ports that we have here. Let's go back here. We'll reset the ports. MCP run. I think maybe this stuff is fucking it up. This run MCP situation that we created here. What do we do? UV. UV MCP run. UV run MCP run MCP. Obviously, that's what we needed to do. Change the log level here. Can we at least get that debug flag? Yeah, the problem is this fucking like wrap that they have on this is just such trash. Is there a way to get the actual... Let's come back here. Direct execution. This is what we're doing. Stateless HTTP transport. You can mount multiple fast MCP servers. There's just too many ways of doing things here. There's like 40 different fucking things and everything is abstracted. It just makes it like a very terrible experience here. Like if I do this and I run it, how do I connect with a client to that? Right? Like that should be just like straight up 101. Connect to this MCP server. Control F, client. Client usage. How am I connecting? How am I connecting to this? Writing MCP clients. Client display utilities. What if we put this weird flag that they keep trying to tell us to not put? This one here, dangerously omit auth. Let's put that. Fast MCP. Okay. This should have some kind of property. Auth server provider. No, we want some kind of... See, it's also messing with a logging. Session manager instructions name. Maybe that's what we want. List tools, call tools, async. We want some kind of IP address. Completion, resource, decorator, prompt, custom route. Handle SSE. SSE. Return an instance of the SSE server app. Okay. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to do raw. We're going to copy that. Let's go back to our Kubernetes right here. We're going to call it tatbot. Do this. We're going to say connect. Fill this in for our MCP server at run MCP. Here is some information about fast MCP. We gonna do raw by cloud. Did you just join at like a terrible point? We're trying to get our local MCP server to connect to Cursor, but this Cursor is a remote workspace session anyway. So I think that's kind of the reason why this is all just being terrible, is because this Cursor session is actually a remote session into a different computer, and that different computer is what's actually running the MCP server. So I think when it's trying to connect, it's trying to connect as if it was from here rather than the actual separate computer, which is probably why it's having issues. But the problem is that the MCP stuff, like, they really wanted to make this as brain dead as possible, especially the Python SDK, because it's like, you know, if you're writing Python SDKs, you just assume the person that's using your code is retarded, you know, because Python is the, for the slow kids. I use Python all the time, so that's not necessarily, you know, I understand that I am a slow kid for using it, but, like, the problem is that they kind of obscure all of this stuff away from you, so you don't actually know. Like, for example, right here, it's like, what is this server? Like, where the fuck is this server running? You know, like, they don't even tell you that. It just kind of like all does it in the background, and then it's very unclear. I'll add the following capabilities. No. I want you to add the URL to this. Like, what the hell is it? What the fuck is this? Instructions? Reject. What the hell is that? Okay. Streamable HTTP. Okay, now that the server is configured to run over HTTP, I will update your MCP with the default URL. Okay. So we have to mcp.run transport. So now if we go back to here, if we go to the fast MCP class here, Control F, run. This is the run function. Here it is, the transport korg. And there it is. So the default is stdio. That's what we were running before. Look at these match and case statements, some modern Python right here. And then we're going to switch to this one. Okay, seems fine. Once we do that, review next file, it should be available here with that transport. Okay. So now, if we run mcp.py, that'll start the server. Now we have the MCP server running. The MCP server is now running. It's available here. We've told Cursor that it is there. So now we go to Cursor. It's stuck on loading tools. Okay. Still loading tools. .404 not found. Okay, let's see if Cursor can debug Cursor. Okay, so we're going to do Control I so we don't lose the session. Sorry, Control L, I think it is. So that'll add it to the current chat. And then we'll say on the settings panel, it says loading tools. Kind of stuck there. What could be going on? Authentication? Question mark? All right. So I don't like this 404 that we got here. That's a little concerning. With question by ZZZZZZZ. With Pokemon being completed by various LLMs, but requiring lots of tools, what is needed for long-term, like vending bench, an MCP tool to take a vacation? What is vending bench? I've never heard of that. Vending bench? A benchmark for long-term coherence of autonomous agents. Yeah, so let's see. Can exhibit impressive proficiency in short-term tasks, but often fail to maintain coherent performance over longer time horizons. Yeah. And I mean, this has been a thing for ever, right? Like if you look at reinforcement learning, this was always an issue, right? Any type of environment where you had very long horizon tasks, and the long horizon just kind of means that it's a long task, right? It's like the one classic property of a long horizon task is that the reward signal is very distant from the actual action required to get that reward signal, right? So like the one that Montezuma's Revenge, this was like the classic RL game in Atari that people would play, and it was difficult because it was very long horizon, because you basically had to grab this key and then you had to go to like some other place like 4 screens down to open the door, right? And it's very difficult to maintain kind of that information that long, right? Especially in the early days, you would just have kind of like a little bit more randomness in there, so it'd be very difficult to even get the correct series of actions or sequence of actions required to grab the key and then go open the door. But I guess the reason why I'm bringing that up is just as an example of longer time horizons. But okay, in this paper we present Vending Bench, a simulated environment that tests an LLM's agent ability to manage a straightforward long-running business scenario, operating a vending machine. Balance inventories, place orders, set prices, handle daily fees. High variance. Okay, so you have some tools which probably use MCP. Like, I wonder if they use MCP. No, Control F, no MCP. Okay. But this would be a good use case for MCP, is to basically expose these tools to the AI that's actually running them. Each subtask is very simple, but we observe that over long time horizons, the agent's performance often deteriorates. So here's another interesting Dagger Robotics paper. Yeah, so this one. This is an old paper where sequential prediction problems on imitation learning, future observations depend on previous predictions. So once you have some predictions that kind of drift off the path, then future predictions are depending on those previous ones. So like as soon as you go a little bit off the path, it becomes easier to go more off the path. So that's kind of the fundamental issue here, is that each individual subtask is simple, but if you make a very slight mistake, those mistakes start accumulating, and then at some point, the context that you're using to try to make the right decision is polluted with all these mistakes, so the chance that you actually make a good choice there is pretty low. So it's kind of more the accumulation of mistakes. But I would say that we're more just missing a fundamental piece here, right? I think what we're missing is some kind of error correction that is running constantly, right? So like if you had an LLM that was running a vending machine, right? You wouldn't just want to only call it when it needs to do something. You would basically want this background process that is constantly looking at all the resources, just to use some of the MCP terminology, but like all the text that it has available, and then being like, is this correct? Does this look correct? Does this look correct? Does this look correct? You know what I'm saying? Just constantly keep asking yourself that question and fix your kind of memory, right? Whatever it has, the information. I haven't actually read this paper, so I don't know if it's doing that, but I bet you if you added this kind of constant error checking and error correction, you would probably be able to increase the horizon of agentic AIs like this. And I think that might even be like a new type of business use case, right? You can imagine a future where most companies, or there's like large chunks of companies that are basically automated and being run by some central AI. You can imagine some kind of like API service where you basically give it all the information of the business, and then you ask it, hey, does everything look good? Right? Which is kind of like how people use like lawyers or finance people now, where they're like, hey, here's all the information here's all the legal documents. Does it all look good to you? Or here's all my finance documents for the last quarter. Does this all look good? And then let me not just ask you, but then I'll ask like multiple different finance people, right? So you can imagine some LLM that runs a vending machine occasionally asking this AI over here, and occasionally asking this other AI. So then once you have that diversity of opinions, of diversity of different AIs that are giving you slightly different opinions on whether or not you have an error or not, I think the likelihood of you finding those errors and fixing them is higher. So getting external opinions to ensure a cohesive context that doesn't have errors and isn't accumulating these errors, I think will extend the horizon. Okay, all the LLMs crashed out. This is ZZZ again. Do you think the bias for stories to have dramatic climax influenced them? Dramatic climax? What are you talking about? Climax? I can't... That doesn't... Drama? Control F drama? 30,000. Yeah, this is the part where I feel like it breaks down, is that you start putting crap inside your memory. And then once you have so much crap inside your memory, then the AI can't work well. But if you had something that proactively goes through that and cleans it from the crap, I feel like it might work a lot better. IDK. That's just my thoughts. Oh, look at this. We got our tools. Let's see if we have them accessed. Check to see if all the nodes can be pinged in TatBot. Let's see if we have access to it. Oh, look at that. It worked. Oh. All right, let's what other tool do we have? So we also have the node usage tool. Let's try that one. Check the node usage of There you go. It's calling the tool. Oop is at 4.7 CPU. Okay, a bunch of these failed. Oh my god, it's already starting to stop. You good, buddy? You good? Don't keep going. Dao Chong with the $10. I appreciate it. I don't know what I did to deserve that, but either way, I appreciate it. Maybe do you have a question, Dao Chong? Run MCP node usage, update all. Let's try to run the update all too. Update all the nodes. Calling update all. Successfully updated. I'll try checking the node usage again. Called node usage. Oh my god, look at it just blasting. So it tried to run this. It didn't work on one of the nodes. It went and just automatically started running this Python code on the actual Pi, but that's not even the right username. No, stop. I mean, that's pretty good. I think we're already over time anyway, so we might just end it there because we successfully called a MCP tool from our cursor. All right, let's push what we have. All right, guys, let's do a little review here. Okay, so MCP. This was today's stream. So for today's stream, we got a little bit more familiar with MCP, the Model Context Protocol. I thought that Gemini had the best explanation of MCP. It's an open standard that standardizes how AI models like LLMs connect with and utilize external data sources and tools. So basically, it's you give your LLM access to information, either like plain text or some kind of database, and then tools, which is some kind of function that does something. In our case, it's the ability to control these different computers on this tattoo robot and do different things with them. The primary function is to create a universal model-agnostic interface, eliminating the need for custom integrations for each new data source or application, right? So all of the classic software world that existed, all those different tools that we've built up over decades, we need to basically make these available to AI so that they can use them, right, with these tool use capabilities. So what MCP does is it basically creates this universal protocol, which is just a fancy way of saying, like, this is the standard. If you have some random robot that does something, that if you provide the tools in this specific way and now you expose this server, then any model can effectively use those tools or get information about that thing. these type of protocols, they only work if everybody decides to use them, right? So like it's kind of like the HTTP is another type of protocol. And the reason HTTP works is because everybody uses it, right? So MCP is only going to work if everybody decides to use MCP. But as we were saying, just from some of the YouTube videos I've watched recently, right? There was a video with Greg Brockman where he says he's using it, right? We know that. So we know OpenAI is probably using it. We know Anthropic is obviously using it. So I think there's enough of a critical mass now that we're probably going to see MCP continue to kind of be the standard here. There's always the chance that the paradigm changes enough that we don't even use MCP anymore. Something else changes, or somebody comes up with a new one. Maybe OpenAI has their own version of it. Then they suddenly switch to that one, and then they decide to no longer use the Anthropic MCP. But that seems kind of like not super likely. So that's what MCP is. And yeah, we got it working with our cursor. Ran into a bunch of like issues. It's kind of annoying. I think the documentation for this is a little bit shitty. A little bit too confusing. It should be a little bit more streamlined. Like like just look at this. There's like 50 different ways of doing stuff. Like look at this. That's way too much Python code to have in a README. You know, like your README should just be like, here's one example, and the example should work every time. Not like, here's 50 different examples with slightly different things. I don't know. Either way, I appreciate you guys hanging out. The music today, by the way, was from Udio. Just I typed in Lo-Fi House, and I just hit play, so that's what's been playing in the background. The thumbnail is from OpenAI, Little Ghibli. Thanks, everybody, for hanging out. Hope you guys have a good weekend. Thank you, Alex, Ed, ZZZZ, Dao Chung for the 10. ByCloud, thanks for dropping by. Ed, Julian, Paul, South CX, Felix Frey, Ekshunya, 87GN, Sid, Tony Ramchandani, Konstantin, Pratik, Lil KM. Thanks everybody for hanging out. Hope you guys have a good weekend and see you guys later.